And we now head to the Israel-Gaza border to our correspondent, Eylon Levy. Eylon, thank you for being with us. And these are constant attempts by Israel to detect the tunnels. This is perhaps perceived now as the biggest threat to Israel, even more than the rockets, which occasionally fly from Gaza, some of which we've seen on Friday.
Absolutely. During the last war, Israel had its Iron Dome missile defense system, which it used to shoot down most of the rockets that were aimed at civilian areas, but it didn't have a solution to the threat of tunnels and the possibility that Hamas militants could pop out at any point a matter of meters away from Israeli communities and possibly commit a massacre there. We are now in a situation where this morning Israel destroyed a cross-border tunnel that stretched from inside the Gaza Strip to Israeli territory. They used methods that were slightly more sophisticated than blowing it up as they did 6 weeks ago. We're not aware of any Palestinian casualties inside, but this is strategically pushing Hamas into a corner because they now are faced with the question of whether to allow Israel to continue destroying these tunnels, taking away what they perceive as their strategic edge in the next war. I should add that on this front, tensions are high for another reason. Hamas is threatening revenge for the death of 2 of its fighters who were killed in an Israeli airstrike over the weekend. That was in response to 3 missiles fired from the Gaza Strip. One of them landed in a kindergarten, a closed kindergarten, on a Friday night in the Israeli town of Sderot. Israeli forces here have closed off certain areas as closed military zones. They're preparing for any eventuality, but not expecting an escalation just yet.
Now, things over the border have been relatively quiet for 3.5 years since Operation Protective Edge, which you mentioned. How close, according to Israeli officials, we may be to another round, which may be the 4th round in this war front between Israel and Gaza?
You're right. The last 3.5 years really have been among the most quiet on the Gaza-Israel border. Israel claims it's established a good measure of deterrence against rocket fire. And indeed, it seems that Hamas, the Islamist group that controls the Gaza Strip, isn't interested in another escalation. We understand that the rockets that were fired over the weekend, the responsibility was claimed by a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. The Israeli army at the moment estimates that, in fact, Hamas is trying to prevent that rocket fire, but it's quite possible that with the situation, with the recognition of Jerusalem, if things get out of control, Hamas could find itself getting dragged into another round of conflict. If we see the situation in the West Bank being set aflame, although for now it seems much quieter than many feared, we could see a situation in which Hamas decides to open another front, but at the moment it seems it's more interested in setting the territory aflame in the West Bank rather than drawing fire itself on this front.
And this day on the Gaza border has been relatively more quiet than the weekend. Let's hope it stays this way. Eylon Levy joining us from the Israel-Gaza border. Thank you very much.